I'm going to put my blood and my bones into the soils of Bulgaria. And you guys can do the same, or you can be buried underneath mine. And everybody was in.
Welcome to The Well. I'm Anson Mount. If you're a regular listener to this show, you know that this is a podcast maintained by two rather busy men. And because of this, we kind of publish episodes when we can, however we can. And so there are some interviews that we've had sitting around for a while. And one of those interviews, it popped into my head this morning when I woke up and realized it was Father's Day, 2024. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. I am now proudly one of you, which is one of the primary reasons I have become so busy. But the conversation I found myself thinking back to was with my good friend Rod Lurie. Rod gave me one of my first big jobs in television. It was a short-lived series called Line of Fire on ABC, and we're both still very proud of that. He also directed me in his film Straw Dogs and later directed several episodes of Hell on Wheels. Part of getting to know Rod outside of work was getting to know his kids, Hunter and Paige. They were probably 9 and 7 respectively when I first met them, and I actually watched them grow up. So, and this was a few years ago, it was a terrible shock when I heard that Hunter had died unexpectedly. The conversation you're about to hear is the first time Rod and I were able to sit down together since it happened. He had just wrapped up post-production on his film The Outpost, which he'd been preparing to shoot when it all went down. Anyway, this led us into a larger conversation about creativity, about how the reasons you set out to do something can change over time or quite suddenly. And that's okay. The important thing is that you continue. Here's Rod.
It's a project that sort of grew with importance to me for different reasons as it was being made. I'd always wanted to make a military film because I'm a military guy. I was in the Army, but I was in the peacetime Army, and which meant that I never served in battle. I went to West Point, and a lot of my classmates have served in battle and have suffered the consequences of having served in battle. And you know, they really, you know, when they talk about a band of brothers, that shit's true. That's real. And these are my brothers. And if I couldn't fight in combat with them, then the least I can do is honor them. And it was important for me to make my military film. And it was also a unique military film because movies that have come out about the military, like Lone Survivor or American Sniper, these are about the elite units, the Delta Forces or the Navy SEALs or the Rangers. And this is about grunts. This is about, you know, 21-year-old kids that, you know, have just gone out of high school, or, you know, some of them have just got out of prison, or some of them were just coming off of menial jobs and decided to, you know, join the Army. And now they're out in the middle of Afghanistan fighting. And so I wanted to honor those guys too, because they don't get their credit. Yeah. Like at all, man, like zero. But you know, there is another truth to this film, Anson, which is, you know, it's a really personal one. And on July 2nd of this year, this whole movie changed for me in ways that I could not have conceived of. You know, I was in prep on this film. It was on June 30th, and I'm sitting in Bulgaria. We can talk about later why we're shooting in Bulgaria, but we're sitting in Bulgaria. I'm about to watch a World Cup game. My mom calls me, and when I see my mom calling me in Bulgaria, I know something is up, and so I pick up the phone, and she tells me that she had just gotten a call from the police in Michigan, and that my son, Hunter, was in the hospital, and she doesn't have details. But I need to call the hospital right away. And I did, and they told me that my son had went into cardiac arrest at a concert. They thought he had overdosed at a concert in Muskegon, Michigan. And the nurse on the phone tells me, you know, he was very cavalier about it, actually. He said he's not going to make it. And I'm in Bulgaria, and I got to somehow get to Muskegon, Michigan, and before he dies, because I don't know what I'm going to do, Anson, if he's gone by the time I get there and I don't even see him. And so I get on the phone with my daughter and my ex-wife and Kira, my wife. And I said, when you get there, whatever you do, you just keep him alive. You keep talking to him, whatever. I told the doctor the same thing. I said, please just keep my boy alive, right? And I didn't care about that. I didn't give a fuck about the movie. I didn't care about anything. I just needed to get to Michigan. And I did. And, you know, there's no internet on the plane. I'm there 12 hours. I got no idea what's going on. I land, and the driver, Millennium, had a driver take me from Chicago to Michigan. It was a 4-hour drive. And I told the driver what was going on. He said, we're going to make it in 3. And we did. We made it in 3 hours. And I get brought up to the room, and my son is completely wired up. You know, he's every device known to the health world is attached to him. And it was obviously very upsetting. And I remember I sat down and I told him, you know, that it's okay if he lets go. And my daughter, she says to me, you know what, that I know you're thinking that you can't go back and make the movie right now, but this movie you got to go back and make. Because if Hunter knew that all these jobs are going to be lost now, and that these men don't get their honor, because the movie would be dead, they're not going to be able to replace it, it's just not going to happen. It would be the end of him. So you got to go back. And she convinced me, and I called the studio and I said, I'm coming back. And I said to them, look, the movie's going to be dedicated to Hunter now, so please, everyone get out of my way. Let's just be clear. Now, they were already playing ball, they were already there, but I got to say that this studio, they knew that they were doing it for Hunter as well. And I got up on stage in front of all the actors and the crew, and I said to them, listen, I'm gonna take this photo of Hunter, and it's gonna be right next to the monitor the entire time, and I'm gonna put my blood and my bones into the soils of Bulgaria, and you guys can do the same, or you can be buried underneath mine. And Ensign, everybody was in. I knew how I could inspire Americans to do their very best on this film, but how I was going to inspire the British actors and the Bulgarian crew to do, that was a mystery to me. But they came in, and every day was a hugely emotional day. And I realized, as you know, my son, he died I was holding his hand when he died, and I realized that he was the same age as all these guys. And and now the families of all these soldiers, they're behind me too. And so on the last day of shooting, it was a night shoot, I said, cut for the last time. I took Hunter's photo and I buried it in the soil of the Outpost. And that exact moment, these fireworks go off, and our special effects guy had planned it for Hunter, and so. I know that in these podcasts you like to explore the sources of creativity. And I would say that they come from two places. One is necessity, and the other is from need. Two different things. Necessity came from, I need to finish this movie in 39 days. I needed to do it creatively. The need was something deeper in my heart, which is, I could not fuck this movie up. Not if his name is going to be on it. So, it by far the most important thing I've ever done in my life, period. Nothing comes close. And this way, with his name up there, his name too will always be spoken.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's deep, and in a way, I'll devote the rest of my career to him as well. He was an assistant editor, and we always talked that one day he's going to edit my movies, and I just could not imagine anything greater in my life than being in an editing room with him making editing decisions, or we're making them together. That would have been sublime. But we never got that chance. We're never going to get that chance. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in an afterlife. I wish I did. Make life a lot easier. But it means that I have to do the best I can right now. This is it. And so I'll do that for him.
It's exactly what he would want.
Yeah.
I knew your son. Yeah, and Paige was right, man.
Yeah.
You had to. That's exactly what he would want.
Yeah, she told me, look, if you're making... She brought up a pilot that I did a few years ago. If you're doing that, then, then fuck it. It's not important. It's important. It's important. And so, my my edict of when I bury my bones, my blood, it's also in the editing process and the sound process. And I don't think I was a bit, you've been on sets with me. I'm demanding on the set, and I know what I want, but here I was just,
Yeah.
No, that's wrong. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it right. But we were so well prepared in this film that we got it right often when we were on the set. And I love my son, and I love these men who died, and I love these actors who played them. And I think something else that started happening is that they were so invested, these actors, that the crew around saw what they were doing. And look, you've been on good movies, good shows, bad shows, and the crew and the cast, they started getting a sense of what they're on, and it will motivate them differently than if they're on something that they don't think
Sure,
works,
yeah.
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 I mean, what is the project that you were on where you felt the most creatively inspired?
Oh, man. That's hard. I would say deep into the later seasons of Hell on Wheels.
Yeah.
Because I had an ownership there as a producer
Right.
that I hadn't had before.
It's really interesting because a lot of actors get the title of producer, but I noticed that you were actually taking it seriously. Like,
Wow, I was surprised. I thought I was just getting the title. When I started getting homework, I was like, oh,
right.
I have to actually do something.
Well, you were looking at cuts, but I would say that in some of the later episodes, like season 4 on, when did Common die? What season? Was that season 4?
No, Yeah.
Elam died in
in
season 4.
your episode that you directed in season 4.
Right. So the episode before that, that was
The one that Clark Johnson
the one that Clark Johnson directed, might be one of the. You're not even in that episode.
I know what you're gonna say.
It's one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen.
I totally agree.
I don't know.
totally agree.
I don't know. I think that's Clark.
It was incredible.
It was unbelievable, and the DP Marvin Rush did. There were a couple shots there that are just beyond the scope of imagination. How great they are. And there was an episode. God, I wish I remember the name of the episode. I think you were chained to somebody. Was that you at the?
Me and the Swede. When we were chained together, yeah.
Right, and there was that was not Marvin DPing. Marvin may have, God, what is it? Fantastic director, Michael.
Michael Nankin.
Yeah, boy, Michael fucking knocked that one out of the goddamn park. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the photography in that was unbelievable. And I think he was using special cameras and so on.
Yeah.
And that's where they showed a little bit of Andersonville, I think, right?
Yeah, and we shot that was Michael's hand crank camera.
But that was two things can happen to a show as it goes into several episodes. One is that it gets tired, and everyone's bored. But the other is that they're on a run, they're on a roll, and now the network is going to let you do your thing. And that seems to be what happened with Hell on Wheels. And so it was the last couple of years where I think that you just saw some stuff that was as good as anything on TV. And I consider it crime is the wrong word. I don't want to, that's probably too heavy a word. But it was a real injustice that AMC simply didn't put in any Emmy campaign whatsoever. They didn't try for you guys. I know there's nothing that you can say because maybe you'll work with them again someday, but they didn't do right by that show. They put it all into Breaking Bad. They put it all into, I guess, The Walking Dead or whatever other shows that they had. But, in the later years, that was some of the best television that there was, period. It's as good as it gets.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it was.
I was really glad you could come and do it with us.
I'll tell you. I hope this does make it good. I'll tell you something. Some of the happiest times I ever had was directing Hell on Wheels, and here's why. First of all, I was working with my good friend, and that's always great, because I really can talk to you and direct you and not bullshit you, and you'll really listen. I think you listen to everybody, but it's sometimes there are just better relationships with actors and directors. It's like some quarterbacks do better with some wide receivers, right? But the stories were really good. There were 2 or 3 showrunners over the course that I was there, and they all gave their directors freedom. They said, go and do your thing. Mostly our cuts were not too terribly fucked with after we cut them, but also it was great and healthy being up in Calgary. It just felt healthy up there.
Yeah.
It felt good. I did another show up in Calgary called Damnation after Hell on Wheels went down. And it was the same experience. You're outside 90% of the time.
That's a big part of it, yeah.
It's very tiring, but it's great. And there are horses. And I brought my daughter Paige up there, and she, for the last time that I directed Hell on Wheels, and she just loved it because they're just out in the meadows and you're petting the horses. And it's just great, man.
I desperately want to do another show up there because I have family there now.
Yeah,
my wife's from Alberta.
Unbelievable. So. Well, see, that show did really well for you.
Changed my life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man. Of course, it changed your life in a lot of ways, and it was a good show, and it had a mythological quality to it, and it's good stuff, and it did well. It was one of the highest rated shows in AMC. Yeah, incredible. Yeah. But what about Cook County? Where does that rank with you?
Oh yeah, the first movie I guess I produced. You know, oh my goodness, it was a steep learning curve. You know, that was if any film has exemplified the concept of Murphy's Law, that was one of them.
Oh my God!
You know, it was
Sure,
so
that's
hard to
true.
shoot.
And
And you gave us some very helpful notes during the process, which we appreciated very much. Yeah, I loved. That was a hard time for me, but like you just talked about, putting it into the work. I think if I did one thing successfully, I took a very hard time in my life, and I put it into the work.
what can I ask? What is going on in your life? Is that something you can talk about on the
It's
podcast?
not so, no, it's not something I can really talk about.
Well,
publicly,
let me ask you
but
this.
I mean,
Let me ask you this
yeah.
then about that film, and because about the creative process.
Yeah.
I think you might play one of the most despicable characters that's ever in the history of film. Anybody who sees this movie, you know, it's not a date movie at all. It just isn't. And it's really the kind of movie that you watch at home. It's not something you go to the theaters to watch. You don't eat popcorn. It's a very, very, very tough film. So you got to, and I know you, and I know that you live with your characters. We can tell stories about you in Straw Dogs, right? Much smaller role. So, did you go home every night after performing in Cook County and the same person that you walked into in as the morning?
I think that I don't think it's a good idea when, there's certain realities of the character that I had to deal with. One of them was playing a meth addict, and so losing 26 pounds and being in ketosis is not a good place to produce from, because your body is telling you to go out and kill something and eat it.
Right.
And so that, combined with the stresses of low budget filmmaking and extreme hours and what I was going through in my life, was not a good combination.
Right.
So I was not at my best professionally,
Right.
but I don't think I would go back and change it, just because I learned from a lot of mistakes, and I think it was a decent performance.
It's a great performance. It's probably your best, I would say. You know, or close to it. You know, I've got a softness for some of the stuff that he did in our TV series, Line of Fire.
Yeah.
We look, man. We get to be creative for a living, and if you are creative, that's great. If you're not creative, it can be a hell.
Yeah.
Right. But we do okay in that world, and it's like there's just nothing better. Do you go a little nuts when you're not?
Well,
creating?
I was talking about this today. One of the most important things that I've learned about myself, which I think is part of the process of becoming an adult, is learning what you need to make you happy and to function and to be centered.
Yes.
And a decent human being.
Yes.
Is that I know about myself that I need to be creating
Right.
almost all of the time.
Right.
And that regardless, like now my life is in such a place that when a job ends, it doesn't affect me the way it used to, because I know I've got another podcast episode to produce.
Right.
I've got a book I want to finish. I've got a short film I'm producing. I've got a lot of a lot of different pokers in the fire that I don't really, the amount of money I am making, even right down to not making any money at all, doesn't matter. The amount of work that I put into a podcast episode equals anything that I do.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you'll put a lot of work into this. You're gonna.
Oh, absolutely.
You're gonna edit it.
I edit the hell out of my stuff. Yeah.
Does your wife fully on board with creative obsession?
I think so. I think she gets
she
me.
creative?
She's
Is
a
she-
photographer,
Yeah. So
and
she gets it.
she's very self-driven.
You know, Anson, when one piece of advice I often give to young actors or actresses, they're both actors, is if you're going to be with somebody, don't be with another actor. Be with a artist of a different kind.
Oh, yeah.
Because you need to understand passion.
Yeah.
My wife, Kira, She was a New York Times best-selling author, great novelist, and she goes through exactly what I go through, but in the publishing world, right? And I get it, and she gets it. And when she says, "I need to be left alone. I need to write," I don't take it remotely.
Yeah, because you
personally.
understand what that's like.
I do,
Yeah.
but or if I say to her, I'm working on a script, or I need to stay up late, or I need to
Or I have to go to Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, or I have to go to the editing room,
Yeah.
or whatever, she completely gets it. It's not always been the case.
Right.
Not in my first marriage, not in several of the relationships I had after I got divorced. And that's not to blame any of these women or any of these individuals who don't understand, but if your partner doesn't understand
what it takes, right? Yeah.
they don't understand the creative process, they don't understand creativity,
Or the realities of this business.
that's something else. What I'm talking, and that's true. What I'm talking about, because there are also realities of business with being a stockbroker,
Right,
being
sure,
a doctor.
sure.
But if they understand that it is part of our DNA makeup that we need to be creating, or we will stop like a shark not swimming, that's necessary.
Yeah.
For us to.
Yeah.
That's necessary for us to survive.
My wife really gets that. And one of the things that
That's
I
great.
appreciate about, she tells me all the time that she likes how hard I work, and that whether I'm doing a huge TV show or I'm doing a podcast that makes no money.
Right.
She really appreciates how hard I work, and
It's really true, and it goes back to this film, The Outpost. Kira was not going to come out to Bulgaria with me, but she came out because when Hunter died, I think she felt that I needed to have that support around me. But she got to see, what this particular creativity meant to me and to everybody around us.
Oh, wow.
And I love having her on sets because she's a writer, and sometimes she'll see things that I miss, and she'll chew me out and then have me fix it. I did this pilot a couple years ago called Monsters of God.
yeah.
Something. Did you ever?
I never actually saw it. No.
Never saw it. Yeah, so it's really wonderful, I think, and so. But there was this African American character, a former slave, and she told me that I was getting him completely wrong. Right now, I guess we should add that Kira's black, right?
Right.
But she told me I was getting it completely wrong, and this is what I needed to do. And I went and told the actor, okay, this is what we're going to do. Otherwise, I'm going to get my ass kicked. And he thanked me for it, and it turned out to be a great character. And the guy's name is Kwame Patterson. And he's on this. He's in the Outpost as well. And then on the Outpost, she took me to task for how we were representing one of the Afghan characters, or actually Afghani characters. Afghan is the money. Afghani characters, and I changed that also. So she provides some creative input as well. And there's nothing that we like doing more, I think, than looking at each other's creative works and being able to comment on them. We don't compete.
Yeah.
Have you ever dated an actor?
Oh God.
Okay, yes, right? And it never works.
No.
Never.
No.
Almost never. I guess Paul Newman and Joanna Woodward worked, but they were both divorced from actors. So, and artists have a different kind. So if your wife is a photographer, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect, or an author, or somebody like that. Anything but what we are. Yeah. I couldn't be married to a director. That would be a disaster.
Right.
It would be a disaster.
Right.
The Well is produced, recorded, and edited by Brandon Edgens and me, Anson Mount. Theme music by Jonathan Myberg. Additional music provided by Poddington Bear under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial 4.0 International License. Special thanks to Rod Lurie for taking the time to sit down with me. And thanks to all the fathers out there. Keep on keeping on, and keep on being there, guys. More power to you. Have a great week.